We begin tonight, though, with the countdown to Election Day 2009. I will admit that it is early yet. Election Day is still 3 hours away on the East Coast, but MSNBC is already prepared to make our first projection. I love this music. We can now report with a really high degree of confidence that a Republican Party candidate will not win the congressional seat in New York's 23rd district. For the first time since roughly the Civil War, New York's 23rd district will not be represented by the Republican Party. This bold projection comes as the result of the stunning news over the weekend that the Republican candidate in that district has withdrawn from the race and then pledged her support to the Democrat she had been running against. Republican candidate Didi Skozafava was forced to drop out of the race after facing a challenge from the right, from the Conservative Party candidate Doug Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman has become the canvas onto whom the right has projected its hopes of purifying the Republican Party by kicking out Republican moderates like Skozafava. And in the case of Didi Skozafava, that is mission accomplished. She is out of the race. But now comes the prospect of Conservative Party Congressman Doug Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman doesn't live in the district he is running to represent. The editorial board of the hometown paper there, the Watertown Daily Times, described him as showing no grasp of the bread and butter issues pertinent to district residents. The editorial board said that Mr. Hoffman was flustered and ill at ease to even be asked about local issues. Despite those shortcomings as a local candidate, Mr. Hoffman has been vaulted to national prominence by a bevy of far-flung conservative celebrities like Fred Thompson and Dick Armey and Sarah Palin and the hosts of some Fox News programs. And these conservative celebrities are not just devoted to Doug Hoffman. It turns out the feeling is mutual. In one case, Mr. Hoffman pledged his sacred honor to a Fox News host, Glenn Beck. Literally, he did it in writing. Do you want to see? Mr. Hoffman pledged his, quote, sacred honor to uphold the 9 principles and 12 values of Glenn Beck's 9/12 Project. Mr. Hoffman went a step further even today on Mr. Beck's radio show.
Here, see there?
See what's happening?
He's getting stronger.
He's getting stronger.
Second.
There it is. That's what's happening.
Every second.
I have good mentors here.
What about...
Wait. Are they mentors that will show the light?
You, Glenn.
I'm talking about you, Glenn. You're my mentor. The electoral rise of Doug Hoffman in New York State, the defeat of the locally chosen Republican Party candidate in favor of a man who has pledged himself in writing to a Fox News host who he calls his mentor, is a real victory for the Tea Party-infused right wing of the right wing that is ascendant in conservative politics right now. And despite the fact that their own candidate was forced to withdraw from the race, the National Republican Party has noticed what's going on here. The National Republican Party has noticed that the Tea Party tidal wave is crashing over its head, and they have apparently decided to grab a surfboard. The Republican National Committee has now put its full support behind the third-party candidate who forced their own candidate out of the race.
Let's tell the liberals enough is enough. No more bailouts, taxes, and budget-busting spending. Tell the politicians no more. We won't let you bankrupt America. Fight back. Vote conservative. It matters like never before.
Tell the liberals enough is enough. No more bailouts, no more taxes, fight back. If the language that the RNC is using in that radio ad sounds familiar to you, it may be because you've seen it on the side of a Tea Party Express bus rolling through your town. The paint job on the Judgment Day bus for the Tea Party Express includes calls to end the bailouts, reduce the size of government, stop the out-of-control spending. Enough is enough. The National Republican Party and the Tea Party movement are starting to become one and the same. And the Tea Party takeover is now extending beyond just local races. The ostensibly grassroots Tea Party organizing group, Americans for Prosperity, is teaming up with Republican Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann of Minnesota to call for another round of protests in Washington, D.C. this week.
We need you here. You need to come to the nation's capital. We're going to have a House call on Congress, and the members of Congress need to see the whites of your eyes, and you need to see the whites of the eyes of your member of Congress.
I don't mean to be creepy, But the whites of their eyes reference is that you're supposed to wait until you can see the whites of someone's eyes before you shoot at them. That's where we get that phrase from when to shoot at people. Ms. Bachmann has also said in the past that she wants her constituents to be armed and dangerous in opposition to the global warming bill. This type of rhetoric, the rhetoric of revolutionary violence, is really the currency of the Tea Party folks. And Michelle Bachmann's embrace of that kind of rhetoric is one of the reasons that until now she has frankly been seen as part of the wingnut fringe of the elected Republican Party. She has not been seen as a mainstream part of Republican politics. But now it is getting much harder to tell where the fringe stops and where the center begins. The Michelle Bachmann Americans for Prosperity Confront Your Congressman event on Thursday, the whites of their eyes thing, is now being endorsed by the Republican Party's congressional leadership. The Tea Party takeover of the Republican Party has begun in earnest, and every Democrat and liberal in the country wishes them very, very well. Joining us now is Chris Hayes, Washington editor for The Nation magazine. Chris, it's good to have you here in person. Thanks for coming in.
It's great to be here.
You're the only person who's ever drunk actual water from the actual MSNBC water cup.
Oh, I thought it was vodka.
It's coming down to the wire in upstate New York. How awkward is it for the National Republican Party to be endorsing the candidate who forced their candidate out of the race?
It's very awkward. I mean, it was, it's sort of like getting dumped by someone and then pretending you're still together. I mean, this was a repudiation of the Republican Party. And in fact, if you talk to the conservative activists, their ire is focused as much institutionally on the Republican Party as it is on anything else. The liberals, the liberal media. John Henke, who's been a guest on this program, was saying on Twitter the other day, this is the first thing we're doing is going after the GOP, and everything else is sort of secondary right now. So it's very awkward. They're endorsing the insurgents that have targeted them.
Well, it does feel like they're trying to figure out a way to co-opt the insurgency. The question is, who has to go within the Republican Party in order to make room for these folks? Obviously, in New York 23, it was Dede Scozzafava whose name is very hard to say, I'm sorry, who had to go. But who nationally is at risk with this ascendance of the Tea Party folks?
Well, here's the irony, is that the electoral minority it's so intense already. I mean, they've already lost so many moderates. It's very hard to find anyone in that party anymore who isn't really kind of a Tea Party sort. I mean, Mark Kirk comes to mind in Illinois. He's going to run for Senate in Illinois, and he is one of the few remaining sort of genuine moderate Republicans. It's going to be very interesting how if Republicans stage insurgency there as a primary battle, and he's someone who actually would have some state viability. But once you get past him, I mean, you're really dealing with a party that is already extremely right-wing ideologically. I'm not quite sure, like, who even is left to purge.
Well, they're for example, turning on Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich made a decision in this race to support the Republican candidate. He very much held his ground the entire time that as other conservatives were coming in and endorsing Hoffman. And then he proclaimed that he was very disappointed when his chosen Republican candidate endorsed the Democrat. But if Newt Gingrich becomes the enemy here, what does that say about where the Republican Party goes with, say, a 2010 platform? Where do they go policy-wise if even the Gingriches of the world get kicked out?
Well, they go full. I mean, first of all, one of the things when you're running as the opposition is that you have the benefit of not having to articulate a super clear vision of what you want to do. So there's a certain kind of ideological immaturity even in what's being called for now. I mean, you saw the end the bailouts, balance the budget, and also don't raise taxes, and taxes haven't been raised yet. And if you can't get all those things necessarily all together, so that's one problem. But you know what? What they're thinking is we're going to run this sort of oppositional insurgent campaign, and then we'll sort of deal with policy later. Voters usually do want to see some kind of substance. I mean, if you go back to the Lamont-Lieberman primary, which was kind of the mirror image of this, Lieberman supported the war. The war was an actual disaster, and Lamont wanted to get troops out of the war. That's an actual concrete issue. You have to go to voters with actual concrete issues. You can't just go with kind of ideological fervor.
And meanwhile, are Democrats and liberals... Is there any bad news for Democrats and liberals in this?
There is, actually, and I think we should be wary to sort of cheer too loudly, because the fact of the matter is they're doing the first thing they need to do to become stronger on the right, which is to chase the energy to begin with. I mean, they're already very pared down, okay? And so what you do first is you organize, and if you look at what happened on the left when it's sort of wilderness years, the first thing it did was it sort of organized the base. And what I'm very worried about in the midterms is that those are base elections. Those are turnout elections in 2010, as a special election and as a 2009 election is going to be, and there is a very big gap between how activated the right-wing base is and how activated the left base is right now, and that should concern Democrats.
Chris Hayes, Washington editor for The Nation magazine. Thank you for coming in, braving the water cup and everything. It's good to see you, Chris.